Hello, I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing? We now know who the Super Bowl battle is going to be. Of course, it's Chiefs and the Eagles. Not exactly super exciting because we've seen these teams a lot, but boy, it's hard to argue that they both belong. And along those lines, I'm kind of taking a different approach to the first half of today's podcast. I'm stealing this from my buddy Mike Sando, who writes for The Athletic. But he's kind of comparing dynasties, which maybe you don't like it, but this Chiefs team is a dynasty. Win or lose next or 2 Sundays for now. There's no question. And he started to compare, the best dynasties ever. And I just wanted to throw these out there because it's very, very Steeler related, as you can imagine. So his headline is Chiefs. Move over. What do you say? He says, move over 70 Steelers, ? Not quite yet, but the Chiefs are almost there. And they really are, folks. It's bonkers. So he just kind of has a criteria he calls winning 3+ Super Bowls over 5+ seasons, posting the NFL's best regular season win rate, beginning with the first Super Bowl winning season and ending with the final or most recent one, and reaching the conference championship round more than half the time during the dynasty. 4 teams made that cut. The Patriots from 2001 to 2018. Okay. The Niners, the Bill Walsh Niners, the 1981 to 94 Niners, followed by the, of course, 74 to 79 Steelers, and now the 2019 to 2023 Chiefs. But he does a direct comparison between the Super Steelers and the current Chiefs. Total seasons, 6 apiece. Winning seasons, 6 apiece. Their record during that time, now they play more games now, the Chiefs are 78-22 during that stretch. The Steelers aren't quite as good, 67-20-1, but they played fewer games. So they have fewer losses and fewer wins. And their winning percentages are very close. The Steelers are at 767, and the Chiefs have won 78% of their games. What was their win percentage rank during that time? Both teams were number 1. What's interesting to me is point per game margin. So the average Chief game in this stretch has been a 6.3 point victory for Kansas City. The Steelers haven't beat there, though. How about this? And this kind of blew me away. I mean, in these 6 seasons, the average Steeler game was won by Pittsburgh by 10.1 points. So the average game was over a 10-point victory. How many conference championship appearances? Steelers had 5, Chiefs had 6, which is 100% versus 83%. Super Bowl appearances, Steelers had 4, Chiefs had 5. Super Bowl wins, Steelers, of course, had 4, and the Chiefs have 3 or 4. If they win this next one, they tie. Pretty crazy. I mean, and I know a lot of your comments will be like, things were a lot different back then. There was no free agency. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different back then. There's no doubt about that. But I did find it pretty darn interesting. But a big thing he stresses is that point average difference, which is crazy. But the thing that's most impressive to me about this Chiefs team, well, there's a lot, but how often have we talked about 1-score games? And this really reflects on the Steelers and the Tomlin era and all that. But they have a 17-game winning streak right now in games decided by 8 points or fewer. That's unheard of. The analytic people will tell you, oh, that's going to go to 500. Not for these type of teams. And the Steelers, even the Tomlin Steelers, have been similar. Nothing like that. I mean, 17-game winning streak in 1-score games is nothing. But the other thing he just mentioned here that I just wanted to throw out, and it's knowing who you are, is the small advantages in personnel, tactics, and execution can seem magnified in games with fewer possessions. Chiefs games, in other words. And I'm saying the Steelers sort of are in this mold. They're not as good at it, the current Steelers, of course. Guys, I know this. But this season's not an outlier. I mean, from 2018 to 2024, Chiefs games have featured the fewest total drives per game, 20.7, of any of the 32 teams. They play it close to the vest on purpose. They're not a high-flying act, I mean, especially since Tyreek. And, Sunday's game only had 19 total drives. That's lower. So they do this on purpose. And I just thought that was interesting. And can the Steelers replicate that? They don't have Mahomes. I get that. But I do like the comparison between the Super Steelers and this group. And also just found it interesting that the Chiefs know who they are, obviously, in terms of we're not going to play a lot of up and down football. We're going to have, fewer drives, the better, and we can win in the end. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA, head to BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, one other thing about this Super Bowl matchup. And please, folks, I don't need every comment saying, you're crazy, the Steelers are so far from the Super Bowl. Yeah, they're far from the Super Bowl. I admit that, and without a doubt. No question. But remember, Andy Weidl was brought over from the Eagles, and since then, they drafted tackles in the top 2 rounds. Now, are they Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata? Of course not. But I am intrigued or slightly optimistic that this Eagles style of build, and trust me, it's easier in the NFC because you don't have to go through Lamar, Allen, and Mahomes, can get you to the Super Bowl. Now, are the Steelers as good as the Eagles? Of course not. Let's not go down that road. I know that's true. But, frankly, the Eagles have the best roster in the league. And frankly, I don't even think it's close. But finding a Hurts-level quarterback isn't all that hard to do. I mean, he's a good player. He played his best game in a long time this past weekend. But they really make things cushy on him. I don't think talent-wise, the Steeler defense is much different than the Eagles. Some scheme stuff would change, could make some big changes. And I'm not claiming that the Steelers are one off-season away. The Eagles were not built in a day. This was a long, impressive build. But I do think, and I'm not saying they should go get Saquon Barkley, but if they can play a similar style and maybe make them the model of how do we get to being one of these teams that's still surviving late in January, it's probably through O-line and defense. And the sugar on top is finally a running back at the end. Now, again, the Eagles are better everywhere than the Steelers. But I just want to throw it out there that you can squint and see where the Steelers are 2 years away from having a roster like the Eagles. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm pushing it. Okay. Some tidbits from previous podcasts I wanted to mention. I told you guys leading into the championship round this past weekend that by no means, there were a couple of trends, if you've listened to Friday's podcast, about these 4 teams that were still surviving. One of which were 4 best teams in the league on 4th downs. Doesn't mean they go for it the most, although Washington does, and Philly does, and the Bills do. The Lions do. But it can't be a coincidence that they're the 4 best teams in conversion rate on 4th downs. What I didn't mention there, though, guess where the Steelers rank? 31st. Yuck. Only ahead of Dallas. Now, that's not the only thing. If they can get to 10th next year, it doesn't mean, all their playoff woes are gone. But it's one area to concentrate on for sure. Another thing that was huge in the playoffs this year, huge, is turnover differential, of course. It always is. But the Chiefs were the first team to win in these playoffs despite losing the turnover differential, and they were -1. But the Steelers, they forced 28 turnovers through those first 13 games, and then only 5 on the 5-game losing streak. I've probably brought that up before, but just wanted to reiterate it. I mean, 28 through 13 versus 5 through 5. Yeah. All right, last subject I wanted to bring up too is Senior Bowl. I was hoping to be there. The Steelers were going to send me some personal stuff. I couldn't go this week, unfortunately. But the Senior Bowl is a blast. I urge you to really dig into draft stuff if that's something you're into. And the Steelers are really into the Senior Bowl as well. I mean, all teams are. There was a lot of first-round picks. This is a really good group. I'm interested in some of the quarterbacks. The running backs are really impressive, but the big guys in particular in this group of Senior Bowl guys is really impressive. And I'll watch all the practices. I'll read up on them. I'll watch a game, and I'll give you some Senior Bowl feedback. Don't get me wrong. But it hasn't happened yet. Only weigh-ins so far. But I did find this interesting. All 4 of the Steelers' top 4 picks last year were at the Senior Bowl. And at least one player, and often more than one, from the Senior Bowl have been drafted by the Steelers every one of Tomlin's years as a head coach. Since he's been here, and probably even goes back further, but since he's been here, they have taken a Senior Bowl participant or more in every one of those seasons, which is a long time, including 4 in a row to start the draft last year. So this Senior Bowl stuff is very Steeler relevant. All right, guys, take care. I'll be back tomorrow.